Hello and welcome to Saturday Morning Cartoons, the weekly podcast that revisits, reviews, and ridicules some of the world's weirdest animated series. Coming to you from Pallet Town, I'll be your podcast master, Dave Trumbore. Joining me as always, my co-host, whose favorite movie is Zorro the Beyblade, Sean Paul Ellis. How's it going tonight, sir?
David, I'm doing well. How about yourself, buddy?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm a little confused as why you had me watch Zorro the Beyblade tonight for a show about pocket monsters, but we'll go with it. It's cool.
Should we then? Do you want to go back and watch the correct one?
Wait, I watched Pokemon and I watched Zorro the Beyblade, and I just assumed that you would help me figure out why we watched those two things.
Oh, buddy.
What did I do? Do we need to stop recording?
No. Look into his eyes for the answer.
Oh, Sean, who's that you have over there?
Oh my God!
Is it Zorro?
We have a very special guest that's joining us, and I just want to say, I choose you, Angie Perko. We have Angie Perko, who is the resident director and co-producer for New Sass Productions in DC. Welcome, Angie.
Thank you,
Welcome
Sean.
back.
Yeah, you should say welcome back.
Thank you so much. Yes, oh gosh, yeah, it's good to be back. It's good to be here.
Excellent.
Yeah, and this is the first time that I'm actually getting to join the show with Angie because I was conspicuously absent for the Powerpuff Girls episode.
It was heartbreaking. We missed you.
I just wanted to leave Sean in with you guys for that one.
Oh, I'm sure he had a blast with me and Melody.
No, that was a great episode. You guys did a fantastic job on that one. It's one of our more popular episodes. So guess what, guys? After you're done listening to Pokemon and Zorro the Beyblade, you can go back and check out the Powerpuff Girls episode as well.
Yeah, you should.
Yeah.
So we should make it very clear for all of our listeners that we watched Pokemon and Beyblade.
Not Gayblade.
Oh.
Sorry, all of you out there who just...
Beyblade.
With your hands starting to itch towards your pants. No, sorry.
Oh, people were so excited we were going to talk
Gayblade,
about...
really?
Finally, a podcast about Zorro the Beyblade.
No, I hope you didn't watch the 1981 George Hamilton movie with Zorro in it.
I mean, I may have.
I mean,
if you watched it in addition to this, I'm totally fine with it.
No, we're totally covered.
No.
Yeah.
I mean,
go ahead, Angie.
Not to give away too many of my opinions, but you probably would have got a very similar experience to watching this show. It would have been bad shit.
The weirdest thing was how Zorro kept collecting creatures and battling them against each other.
Right?
Such a weird
such is the life of Zorro.
Such is the life of the Beyblade. But yeah, if you haven't figured it out by this point, this is our third round of Pocket Monster March Madness month. And if you have not listened to the last two episodes, definitely go back and do that. We will kind of give you a brief overview of what we're doing here. It's different from how we normally do things. We didn't just watch one series and then tear it apart, tell you how terrible it was. We actually watched two episodes of two series, both of which had Pocket Monster elements in common. So basically what we're looking for is a show about a protagonist who goes out into the world and collects some sort of mystical magical creatures, however that may be, whether they be on cards, whether they be in Pokeballs, whether they be in spinning tops. And then the bonus points went to, mythologies that kind of built up a larger threat within the world rather than just a kid going out and fighting in a tournament. So that was really it. And we came up with 10 different series that we've talked about, and we've already covered 4 of them. And then tonight we'll cover 2 more in a head-to-head battle, Pocket Monster Madness. And tonight I'm super excited because we actually get to talk about the series that, spawned the name Pocket Monster. Mm-hmm. We actually get to talk about the original granddaddy, who was seated at number 3. It's actually not number 1, which was surprising when we started this up.
Blows my mind.
It's crazy. And we'll definitely get into whether it should be or not, because I have some strong opinions about that. But
I do as well.
Yeah, that's great.
Curious. We'll see if we agree, or if we violently have to fight over this, possibly to the death.
Yeah,
we'll just have to see.
That's what the show's about. But before we get into bloody gladiatorial combat, Sean, why don't you give us a little bit of history of Pokemon?
Sure thing. Pokemon is a media franchise owned by the Pokemon Company and created by Satoshi Tajiri in 1995. The franchise began as a pair of video games for the original Game Boy, developed by Game Freak and published by Nintendo. The franchise now spawns video games, trading card games, animated television shows, movies, comic books, and toys. Pokemon is the second most successful and lucrative video game-based franchise in the world, behind only Nintendo's Mario franchise. So, pretty big deal.
Yeah, doing pretty good.
Pokemon's kind of a big deal, you guys.
It's kind of
there's
a
reason.
There's
a reason why there's a lot of Pokemon in every iteration of Super Smash Brothers.
That's exactly what it is.
It's the reason why children nowadays are actually born and they're, Pikachu is lodged in their like subconscious, like it's in our like core conscious now.
It's ingrained. It's become part of evolution. I should mention real quick that Pokemon on IMDb has a rating of 7.4. So that's what we used to rank all these episodes and series to begin with, was an IMDb rating. And we'll also be watching just the first episode of each of these series just to keep it consistent. So it won't give us the whole picture, but we needed to keep it consistent.
So, hey, Angie.
Hey.
Would you be able to give us a little bit of the history of Beyblade?
I think I could. So, Beyblade, known in Japan as explosive shot Beyblade, or, which I will be honest, sounds like something that I would watch late night on, RedTube or something, but,
I'm sure we can find that.
Explosive Shoot Beyblade, or in Japanese, Bakuten Shuto Beyburedo, is a Japanese manga series written and illustrated by Takao Aoki to promote sales of spinning tops called Beyblades. An anime adaptation, also titled Beyblade and spanning 51 episodes, aired in Japan on TV Tokyo in 2001. Hasbro Studios and Nelvana Limited licensed the anime for an English language release.
Fantastic. And just to keep it consistent, Beyblade had a 6.7 rating. So we're actually getting closer to similarities in ratings here. So 7.4 for Pokemon, 6.7 for Beyblade. Pretty close.
Cool.
Sean, buddy, do you want to roll through what Pokemon's actually about for anybody out there who doesn't happen to know what it is?
Let's do it. If you've been...
For those of you hiding under a rock for the last 50 years.
I do want to mention, just as a personal aside, the way I found out about Pokemon was my neighbor he came over one morning when I was getting ready to go to high school, and sat down at my kitchen table while I was eating breakfast and just began to put cards down on the table.
Oh,
and he
card
was like,
game.
And this is what this does, and this is what this does. And I was like,
who let you into my house?
What are you doing here, strange child?
First question. Second question, how can I get in on this? It was a very interesting way to be introduced to a card game just through the eyes of a child who loved this entire series. So the Pokemon anime series and films are a meta series of adventures separate from the canon that most of the Pokemon video games follow. The anime follows the quest of the main character, Ash Ketchum, a Pokemon master in training, as he and a small group of friends travel around the fictitious world along with their Pokemon partners. The original series begins with Ash's first day as a Pokemon trainer. His first and signature Pokemon is a Pikachu, differing from the game where only Bulbasaur, Charmander, or Squirtle could be chosen. Accompanying Ash on his journey are Brock, the Pewter City gym leader, and Misty, the youngest of the gym leader sisters from Cerulean City.
All right, nicely done. Yeah, before we get into the topics at hand tonight, too, I definitely want to give Sean, both you and Angie, a chance to talk about familiarity with these series. So we'll touch on that in a second, because I have my own little backstory too for Pokemon, so we should all get in a little share circle. But before we do that, Angie, if you'd like to tell us what this Beyblade show is all about.
Yeah, so Sean, I just want to say that was a lovely, involved, and detailed, and very thorough synopsis of Pokemon. Now here's Beyblade.
Yeah.
Oh no.
Beyblade. A young boy named Tyson enters the Japan Regional Beyblade qualifying tournament, where he encounters Raycon and Kai Hiwatari. After defeating them, they organize a team known as the Beybladers. Known as the Blade Breakers, there we go, along with Max Tate.
The end. Thanks for watching Beyblade. This has been Beyblade.
That's Beyblade, folks.
It actually had like a crazy long history, but the synopsis of this was terrible. Somebody just went into Wikipedia, wrote down everything that happened, like episode by episode, and I was just like, nobody has time for this, so we just
ain't nobody care that much.
No, we really don't. But speaking of that, so let's start with Beyblade. So, Sean, you already talked about Pokemon. Did you have any experience with Beyblade whatsoever before we watched these episodes tonight?
Oddly enough, I knew about it just from the toy commercials.
Okay.
And last Thursday or Friday, I was sitting in a meeting and I was looking at online on Imager, and on the front page there was some story about how a kid thought that a group of like people in his school were fighting, and so him as well as all of the teachers that were around kind of swarmed this area to break up whatever fight was going on in the middle of this hall because of this loud noise and ruckus.
Okay.
And it turns out that two football
Were they
players
Beyblading?
two football players were playing Beyblade
Yes.
and screaming at each other
Oh
like
my
in excitement.
God.
And
The
I just thought this is so relevant and so perfect for this upcoming show. Other than
Wow.
that, I really don't have any exposure to Beyblade.
So clearly, this is a very topical show.
Yeah, clearly. At
that's
least
good to
among
know.
high school football players. Angie, what about you?
I mean, I think slightly too old for Pokemon. When I was a kid, Sailor Moon was my anime when I was a kid.
nice.
I was a huge Sailor Moon fan. Oh my God. But my brother was really into Pokemon. I think both because of the TV show and because of the game. And I wasted a certain amount of hours on the game.
Sure.
You know, when I stole his Game Boy away from him and ran away with it and, you know, wouldn't give it back. So I knew it. I liked it. I remember I was at that age where I was like, this is more kid stuff. And
Right.
I'm a cool, 12-year-old. And I'm going to look at others. Oh, God. But it was definitely part of my life. And it's actually interesting looking back on it, then my feelings on it then and my feelings on it now, which I'm excited to talk about when we get into the episode more. So I'll hold off on that. But yes, I knew Pokemon. Beyblade, I think I know nary a fuck about this show.
Quoting Shakespeare. Fantastic.
For Soothie Gaz, nary a fuck did I give. But I think I saw some of the merchandise once upon a time, which honestly doesn't, based on the synopsis of the show, does not surprise me because
Right.
it seems to have fulfilled the, merchandise first, plot later, saga for this week. Like, that feels like that's what this is.
Or pretty much any
but yeah.
cartoon that we've ever watched. For
Most,
the show
I mean,
was just
yeah.
push the toys down their throat
It's
and we'll
just
put a story
buy
around it later.
things, children, buy things.
Exactly.
But yeah, so I knew nothing. I still don't feel like I really know anything.
Fair enough. Yeah, I kind of had the same feeling for Beyblade. I've definitely seen the images before. I've just never I've never followed it to the logical conclusion of, hey, let me find out what this thing is about. I've just seen it and just moved on with my life. Until tonight. Pokemon, however, so I was kind of in the same situation as you, Angie. I have a younger brother who I feel like he got the game first, and it was back during the red and blue, so the original versions of this.
Wow.
And I think he actually got one, and because he was so into it, I was like, this is kind of cool. I like the idea of it. And if I get the opposite version, then we can both play, and you can actually, there were only certain Pokemon you could get through trading. Like, there were only certain ones in the
Right.
red or certain ones in the blue, and you had to trade through like the old-fashioned actual cable that you had to connect to each other.
Brilliant marketing.
Yeah, this is back in
Brilliant
the days like
marketing.
pre-internet too, so you really had to.
Couldn't even download it.
No, you just had to spend time with your brother. Jeez.
Oh, gross.
Or if you don't have a brother, you had to get both games. You had to get 2 Game Boys,
Right.
and, or you had to make a friend, and that's hard.
Yeah.
God,
90s,
I don't
that's
know
hard.
which one's easier
Well,
at
there's
that
time
point.
for that. And I mean, based on all 90s TV shows, your protagonist has to be alienated from all the rest of his companions who are too cool for him.
Exactly.
So,
So then
how
you
we
just buy
all-
2 Game Boys and 2 different games and just learn how to play with one hand on both of them.
Exactly.
As I did. No, so it all started with the video game, which we'll talk about it in this anime series, but it actually has a cool tie-in. And then, when the card game came out, I played that with my brother, and then we would watch the anime. So it was really cool. I think we actually went. Oh my God, I'm just remembering this now. This might have been like one of his first movies that I took him to as a kid.
Oh.
I think I actually took him to go see Pokemon the movie because we were both like, yeah, this is kind of cool. Let's go check it out. So
The one that was in 2000?
yeah, I think so.
The Mewtwo Mew one.
Yeah, the Mew and Mewtwo one.
Yeah.
I
Because
watched
he would
that
have
with
only
my
been like
brother,
11.
too.
I would have been getting ready to go off to college, so I would have been like a senior year of high school. But yeah, I'm
Aw.
pretty sure I took him to see that. Yeah.
You're
Yeah.
a good brother.
Well, or I just made that whole thing up. I have no idea which one, but
You're a good
So-
liar.
I'm gonna go-
Means brother.
I'm gonna go with
Right into the
good
show.
brother.
Let us know what the truth.
he,
Tell us
he
the
does
truth.
listen, so we'll find out. I'm sure I'll hear from one way or the other. Brother, just stick with me on this one. Just pretend.
Just go with it.
This is the
I'll
long
explain
con. We've
later.
been talking about this one for 16 years.
This is how we get the Pokemon industry to actually notice us and start to give
That's
us
right.
money to mention them every episode. Just
Don't pay
play
attention. We have
along.
a good brotherly love story. Shut up, damn it. Just go with it. Okay, anyway, so let's get into this one tonight. So Again, listeners, if this is your first time joining us, we're going to run through a number of categories, go kind of round robin. We're each going to talk about it for about a minute and then tally everything up at the end. So the first thing we're going to talk about tonight is the theme song, and we're going to start with Pokemon because it is the higher seed. So Angie, you are on the clock, and you've got 1 minute to tell us what you thought of the theme song.
All right, so I posted about this actually on my Facebook a couple of days ago, and Melanie was like, you have to say this on the night. And I was like, fine, I will do this thing. So I'm going to read directly from my Facebook wall as to what I thought
from
about the Pokemon.
Melanie, okay.
Yes, with Melanie's insistence. Love you, Mel. All right, so what I said was, I am watching the first few episodes of Pokemon as research for a podcast I'm going to be a guest on later this week. And I forgot how much the theme song filled me, which is pumped up, wide-eyed, childlike, raw adrenaline. # gotta catch 'em all. Which, I mean, it's like an 80s power ballad about magical animals written by Alan Menken hopped up on ecstasy. Like, it's amazing. This was like the quintessential theme song for me when I was a kid. Like, I without having seen an episode in, I would say, 10 years, I could still sing the whole fucking thing.
That's awesome.
Pretty much. Yeah, it's definitive. It was the 90s theme song.
That's a perfect place to segue over to Sean and see what he has to say.
You know, I felt it was epic. Just at the beginning to declare, I want to be the very best.
Yeah.
What a tone. What a tone to set with everybody. You know, you have great keywords and phrases like destiny and world to defend and phrases that define the entire series, like gotta catch 'em all. Pokemon music.
Friendship.
Right. Yeah. But, you know, Pokemon music has always been something that has been amazing and inspiring. Do you guys remember last election season when Herman Cain quoted a Pokemon song during his
oh my God,
during his speech where he suspended his campaign?
Did he say he wanted to catch all the votes?
He didn't catch any.
He did the Pokemon rap at the end.
Yeah, right.
Oh, that would have been amazing. I would have voted for him just for that. What did he do?
He quoted a line from the intro song that was done in the 2000 Pokemon movie that you took your brother to. And I just want to say, this is just one of those songs that the second you hear it, it got stuck in my head. It was great.
Yeah. No, I feel the same way as both of you guys. Like, this is one that I could just sing like at the drop of a hat. Like, you could just be like, trivia night, just quiz me on it and be like, done, Pokemon, got it, sold.
Yep. It's like all you need is the first two notes. And then it's
there. You just need that. You just need dun, dun, dun. You just need that to come in, and you've got it. The funny thing is, like, this guy.
Very best.
I knew it was gonna happen at some point. the guy that wrote this song and performed it, it's still like his number one hit by far. Like, he doesn't even register on anything else. Nobody even knows what else he's done. But this remains, like, if you go on YouTube and just search like top 10 anime theme songs or whatever, this is easily in the top 3 for most of them, and usually it's like the number one. It's very singable. Yeah. As far as the show is concerned, it explains like the entire premise that you need to know. He wants to be the very best. He wants to catch all the Pokemon. He's going to make friends with them. Everything's going to be great. And we're going to go home happy. That's pretty much like the entire premise of the show. And visually, it shows a shitload of Pokemon. So it's not like just, you just get to see the main guy and then a couple things. Like, you get to see a ton of different creatures in this world. And we'll get into why I think that's really cool as we get more into this discussion here. But it's really one of the best theme songs ever, in my opinion. I love how positive it is, which, Angie, you mentioned about like the friendship, but it's just like super positive. It explains everything you need to know, and it introduces pretty much everybody. So it was great. It was great.
Well, so what was your score, Dave?
I give it a 5. 5 out of 5. This is like my benchmark for theme songs.
Holy shit, guys. I gave it a 5 as well.
That's awesome. Best song ever on Saturday Morning Cartoons.
Amazing.
It's not it's not just one of my favorite Pocket Monster theme songs. It's definitely one of my favorite theme songs for a show ever. So awesome. 5 out of 5 all around.
Yeah, I think we can all agree.
And now to take a different turn, Beyblade. Let's talk about this Beyblade theme song. Angie, how do you feel?
Oh my. Well, when I was writing up my notes for tonight, I honest to God kept trying to recall it first and foremost, and then I was like, that's really all that I need to...
Beyblade.
That's really all I need to say. I mean, it's not bad, but it's utterly forgettable. I mean, my notes on it, I think originally were like, it's very 90s. It sounds like something that like say Ferris or Blink-182 would release on like one of their lesser albums.
Right.
Like that's what it feels like to me. All I remember about it is at some point oh my god, you're kidding me. Okay, this is about to be amazing. But like really, all I can remember is at some point they shriek like 50 million times like let's Beyblade, and that's all I can remember.
That's pretty much all they say, so that's pretty accurate.
Pretty much, yeah. That's it.
That's it. Sean, what about you? What do you got?
I wanted to pose the question: did the early 2000s punk band Yellow Card write this song?
Oh my God, did they? Yellow Card.
That was exactly that's why I turned my notes to Angie. That's why she got really excited. Because if Yellow Card wrote this, I really enjoyed it. Like I
love that it's contingent on if Yellow Card wrote this.
Yeah,
but I guarantee that they didn't. So
no.
I will concur with you and say that a lot of it was forgettable. But I did enjoy the way that they talk about Beyblade and battling Beyblade as a way of life. I always think that if it's something where you're trying to sell kids on an idea of a toy, that's one thing.
Yeah.
But if you're trying to sell kids on the idea of like a lifestyle, like let's get you some fingerless gloves and a hat and get you Beyblading.
Beyblade is a religion. Yeah.
I will say that the song made it sound a lot cooler than the show itself did.
Oh, it sure did.
Like a long shot.
The interesting part is that they have this entire theme song that is sung, and then at the very end, there's just a phrase, and it just somebody talking, and they just go, "Let it rip."
Let it rip. Just let it
Which
rip.
brings another kind of
Sure
brings something else to mind. Honestly,
it was like a fart joke inside of a theme song about spinning top battles, which left me delighted and confused.
Now, you guys pretty much said it. I literally have the words like pretty standard Americanization of a Japanese series through a forgettable theme song, but it had some decent visuals. So, I mean, they actually, way more than the show, they actually showed a lot of the creatures that are kind of like inhabiting these different spinning tops, which is a major sticking point for this particular episode, but we'll get to that. So, yeah, pretty forgettable. They don't really introduce what's going on. They just scream Beyblade a lot and hope that you figure it out and buy the toys. The end. Yeah. So Angie,
it's like incessant like marketing of just like if we say the word enough times, eventually it'll drill into your subconscious and you'll have no choice but to buy these products.
We scream it into your face. Yeah,
let's be honest. They made dreidels cool.
I mean, that's fair.
Made dreidels actionable.
It's like dreidels and marbles, but cool.
I mean, it's like it's glorified. Yeah, it's glorified dreidels. It's glorified marbles.
It's Japanese dreidels.
But let me tell you, I have thoughts on that later on.
Oh, if they would have just named the show Japanese Dreidel Fight, I would have watched it so much more. All right, so Angie, what do you have?
Dreidel.
Let's dreidel. Let it rip. L'chaim. So what do you have for a score out of 5 on this one?
I gave it a 3, just because I didn't find it completely offensive.
Sure.
But it was just boring. It was completely middle of the road.
Okay, so not offensive. So that's worth a 3. Sean, what about you?
Yeah, it was very average for me. I went 3.
I gave it a 2 because I didn't think it was even worthy of being average. It was so forgettable for me that I was just like, if I can't remember anything other than just the title of the show, then you really haven't done your job. So it was a 2 for me. But I think that's all pretty close.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
All right. So theme songs in the books. The next thing we're going to talk about is character design. Now, this is the character design both for the human characters, so kind of like the protagonist, and then definitely the bosses and stuff too. But it's also the design for any of the creatures, the monsters that happen to inhabit the world. How cute they are, how memorable and iconic they are. So we're going to jump into that with Pokemon. So Angie, what was your take character design?
See, I'm torn now because if I could give 2 different scores for people versus animals, or people versus monsters, I would. I think that the people get a little bit carbon copy.
Okay.
I mean, for heaven's sakes, Nurse Joy is literally the same character over and over and over again.
Agreed.
Yeah.
For God's sakes. That being said, I think that they are at least a diverse cast. There are a variety of different people with a variety of different designs and personalities. More than that, like there are very clear and defined personalities between all these different characters. So, I mean, they could have gone further. They could have done more interesting designs, but at least they're different. At least I can tell the difference between the characters.
Yeah,
I'll give them that.
Which definitely helps in shows like these for sure.
Great. And then, I mean, for the monsters themselves, holy crap. The level of thought that went into planning the different styles and the different evolutions and how the two connect to one another and, like, the names. Unbelievable. So, yeah, the monsters alone, I think, get a good score for me.
Gotcha. Sean, what about you?
I mentioned it before, but fingerless gloves on Ash, and to reference
You gotta grip
last
those
week,
Pokeballs, man.
yeah. To reference last week with some of the shows that we had, that weird tuft of hair that's between your eyes whenever you wear a ball cap, had me feeling like Ash
It's
Ketchum.
the hero Forlock.
It had me feel like Ash Ketchum was sort of a caricature of an anime character at certain points. We had other characters in here. We had Gary, or Mr. Gary.
Mr. Gary Oak.
Who criticizes Ash for wearing pajamas, but at the same time, Gary's wearing a completely solid color blue sweatpants and sweatshirt. I was like, that's the pot calling the kettle black.
Yeah, who are you to judge Gary?
Velour tracksuit.
Right.
So, but I will say, saving grace on this, I will say for the humans, Misty is an attractive woman who is dressed provocatively, and there is something about that.
Isn't she like 12?
Yeah, I was gonna say.
That's
like
why
12.
I said she was an attractive woman. But I'm hoping at this point, that was back in like what, in the 90s. She's well beyond 18 now, so I'm confident saying that. But I will say on the monster side of things, it is obviously very clear why Pikachu is the titular character. He's amazing, adorable, and when he yawns, I love it. Yeah. It's so cute.
Yeah.
No, Pikachu.
Dave, how'd you feel?
Yeah, Pikachu is like the iconic character. I mean, it's amazing that they diverged from the game and decided to go with Pikachu because they just knew from the drawing and then definitely from like the voice acting, which whoever that is, I don't have their name in front of me, but you have like the choicest job in life. You literally only have to say like
that person deserves
one
an Oscar.
word. Yeah, but they only have to say one word. And they do so well with it. I'm not knocking them at all. They do a great job.
Yeah.
They do a great job.
But the inflection, the character, and from one word you get an entire character and a literal entire range of emotion. Yeah. That person is worth their weight in gold. I hope wherever they are sitting on a pile of money, having sex with beautiful women or men, whatever their choice is.
I get the same feeling from Stallone every time he's like, ugh. I mean, such range.
He would make the best Pokemon.
Such a character.
Stallone as a Pokemon.
Stallone.
I think it was just Machu or Machamp.
But yeah, pretty much what you guys said. So the humans, I thought the humans were okay. I think Ash is pretty iconic. Like if you just put a bunch of random anime protagonists up in front of me and we're just like, who are these people? I'd pick out Ash before I picked out the kid from Bakugan or the kid from Beyblade or whatever. So I'd pick out Ash, I think, pretty quickly. He also has a strong eyebrow game, which I appreciate. So, but man, the Pokemon are they're so amazing. I mean, there's literally hundreds, if not thousands of them by this point, and they're all very different and iconic, but also cute, and you just want to like draw them or possess them or catch them or just hang out with them, man. And I mean, Pikachu alone gives this thing an extra point. So I rated this one pretty highly because it's just, they're some of the most iconic creatures in all of anime. So, Angie, how did you score this one?
I gave it a 5.
Very nice. Sean, what about you?
Show some love.
I gave it a 4.
Awesome. Yeah. I give this one a 5 too. I mean, I was bordering on 4/5. I really like the fact that I wrote down the coolest thing about the Pokemon is that these aren't just creatures in a tournament in a stadium for battling, right? So they're not just locked up. Like they actually just live in the world. So
they have personalities and they interact with their owners outside of battle. Yeah. Like that's amazing.
We are gonna agree to disagree on that point, Dave.
Sean.
Ooh, interesting.
Dave and I are gonna gang up against Sean
That's
now.
Right. Spite points. I give it a 6 out of 5 because I can. All right, let's jump over and talk character design for Beyblade. Angie, what do you got? You don't sound happy.
What? I don't know why. Okay. My feelings about Beyblade can be summed up in 4 words.
Oh boy.
Where are the women?
Oh, that's a good point. Good point.
Where? Where are they? There is not a single named female character in that first episode anywhere.
Yeah, you're right.
It's a boys' club.
I like right away. I'm gonna take a point off for that. I'm just like, for the love of God, include 50% of the human race, please. Otherwise, I mean, I feel like as everyman. I mean, obviously both Tyson and Ash are meant to be your everyman character, but I find Ash is actually honestly much more relatable and compassionate. Tyson's kind of like a goofy, funny guy, but there's not a lot of personality there. Honestly.
Okay.
The other ones, I mean, they're weird. I can tell the differences, but I don't really care about any of them, with the one exception of Kenny, the Chief, and Dizzy, and Kenny's the nerd of the series, and he has like this like random computer named Dizzy who hits on him all the time. And if the series had been about them, I would have been all about it. But otherwise, I was like, I did not care.
That'll be the spin-off show. Sean, what about you for character design of Beyblade?
Seriously, what the fuck is going on with fingerless gloves? There are so many fingerless bum gloves in these series. It's driving me a little bit crazy.
There's not a single fingered glove in all of Japan. That's why.
That's what I got from this show.
I was surprised, despite the fact that we did not have any female characters, we had a pretty decent variety of male characters that were in here, which I was a little bit surprised about. We had the one battle that Tyson has very early on, where I saw something in a male anime character that I have not seen in a while, which are lips.
Ah, yes.
Which was very
you can call those lips, sure.
Very interesting. So I kind of thought that was bizarre. I really wonder, like when they localized a lot of this, especially for the uncle character, how much of it they tried to localize and make it hip.
Oh, the grandfather.
And kind of punch it up for him. It seemed like he was just trying too hard in certain instances.
Homie, don't mess around.
And I liked.
I want to talk about that so much once we get to the plot.
I liked seeing the Carlos character as a little bit tough. And I really liked the idea that there was these larger Beyblade gangs
down by the bay.
So it was kind of interesting, but yeah, I mean, so
yeah, this one for me, like again, I had a tough time separating the characters. They seem like there's something stuck between Bakugan Battle Brawlers and the Pokemon characters. They're like this weird amalgam of like they just took design elements from different things and kind of mashed them all together I don't know. It didn't seem all that unique or interesting to me. So Tyson was just kind of like, he's a kid with fingerless gloves and like kind of a jacket thing on. And then
I actually
super enthused about everything.
Yeah.
I actually misheard his grandfather say his name, and I thought he said Dyson, like the vacuum cleaner.
Just go clean up the room. It would have been more useful.
How much do you hate your kid? You're
gonna be Dyson. You're gonna be Eureka. You're Bissell.
Hoover, get out of here.
Well, there's my kid's name, so that we should be all set. But no, the other thing the major thing that I knocked this for, and I mean, Angie made a great point about there only being male characters, but the other major thing that I knocked this for was you don't see any creatures at all, except for one exception. You don't see any other creature battles at all. So there's like not that fun element of like, oh, I've got to go out and capture these like wild roaming spirits and then get them to battle with me. You don't see that at all. So I really knocked that pretty heavily for that one. And then the one guy, the tall, lanky guy, Andrew, what the fuck was Andrew? He looked like a Frankenstein monster. I just had wrote down like, what's wrong with his face? Like if you go back and look at him again, his face looks like it was like run over
lips.
and then just
kind of had lips.
No, Andrew's had some work done is what that is.
Andrew's a plastic monster.
It's a little nip tuck.
Those are lips in the same way that Kim Kardashian has never gotten anything edited on her form, okay?
Andrew's a mess. Go back and look up Andrew, everybody. Boy. He's a mess. All right, how do we feel about this one?
So, Angie, nice and compassionate.
How'd you rank this one?
As he transitions.
Oh, yeah, he might have been in transition. That would make sense. That would actually make sense. Andrew was in transition.
By the way, congratulations, Lily. Lily Wachowski.
Yeah,
well done.
She definitely listens to the show, so I'm sure she'll appreciate that.
Hey, that one's for you.
Yeah.
I gave this a 3.
Okay, fair enough.
They were diverse enough that I was like, eh.
They tried.
But again, yeah, no woman, and it's like carbon copies. I'm tempted to knock it down, honestly.
Yeah, you can by the time we're done with this round, or by the end of the show if you want. You can take it.
We'll see.
What does Sean have for this guy?
I actually changed my response based on Angie's comment about lack of women, and I went down to a 3.
You went down to a 3. You had this at a 4?
I had it at a 4. I brought it down
just
to
because
3.
Andrew was in transition. I mean, you don't see that represented too often, so I mean,
I gave it a 4 because I counted 4 pairs of fingerless gloves in these episodes tonight.
That's Sean's pretty.
One for
he's
each
pretty
pair
consistent with that actually.
For each glove.
Over the last 2 episodes, he's definitely given a point for every fingerless glove on screen, and there have been a lot.
It's my new scoring policy.
But you're gonna get in real trouble when you get to Digimon.
Oh yeah, that's true. Oh god, I can't wait.
Boy.
I gave it a 2. I gave it a 2.
Okay.
So I think that's pretty fair. And Angie, if you want to change that up at any time, you are more than welcome to. because this was
We'll see how I feel.
it was not great. Not great.
No.
Not great.
No.
Now, speaking of not great, I was actually a little disappointed with some of the stuff we're going to talk about next. So, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to be talking about the game or the battle mechanics. So that's for the actual battles between the hero and a boss, or just whatever battles take place on screen themselves. So that includes the rules, how fun the game is, and then any of the monster transitions. So like once the hero or trainer calls the monster into the fight, like how do they come onto the stage? We've seen them come out of cards. We've seen them be on like virtual battlegrounds. We've seen a bunch of different things. So Angie, what was your take on how this worked in Pokemon?
Repetitive but interesting,
Okay.
and it's dynamic in contrast to the game, which I think is in its favor. When I kept watching and I actually got to some Pokemon battles, which were not in the first episode, I cheated. It's not like a round-based thing, which I actually thought was in its favor. I also really like the logical and sensible pairing of types against type, and the fact that with experience your Pokemon can evolve to higher levels. I think that the certain types of Pokemon have advantages over the others makes a lot of sense. And I think the way that they do it makes a lot of sense. It like has real world impact on that. I mean, like the Pokeball, like, oh, it comes out of the Pokeball, that gets repetitive after a certain point, but the sheer differentiation between the creatures themselves goes a long way. And I have to say it, the fact that we see interactions with these creatures outside of the battle really matters. And the fact that the creatures' personalities has an impact on the battle as well. I think that I've never seen that in another Pocket Monsters thing, aside from maybe Digimon. And I think that that's wonderful.
Cool. That's a good point. Sean, what was your take on this one?
I was really impressed that not only did the Pokemon have transitions as they were getting like zapped or chosen out of their Pokeball, but also the Pokeball had a transition from being like small to large,
Good
which
point.
I don't remember seeing ever, and so this was that was new to me. You really only see one battle where Ash attempts to capture a Pokemon. It's a Pidgey.
Right.
And it goes as well as you think it's gonna go. Super
for
poorly.
the first episode, yeah.
Stupid 10-year-old boy attempting to make your dreams come true.
Off on your own with no parental guidance.
Right. Well, to that point, like it you don't really get a full glimpse at what the battle mechanic is,
right,
except that it seems like what they're trying to accomplish is no more complicated than throwing a stone at an animal.
Hey,
As we've
our
always done.
ancestors got by. That's why
That's
we're here
right.
today, is because our ancestor did that shit. Don't you knock stones.
But it's, whenever the show came out, it's like they were evolved to the point where like they don't have to murder their food. They're not on a caveman diet.
Maybe they're just reverting to primitive instincts, Sean, okay?
To be honest, though, they're throwing very advanced stones at them. So I feel like you got to give them a little credit for that. These are super
technological
advanced
stones. Dave, what were your thoughts on that?
I mean, I was kind of disappointed that this one didn't really have a lot of battles. It was kind of cool the way it opened up, and we'll talk about this in the plot a little bit, but just to kind of tease it, they do open with a battle of sorts. So that kind of gets you into the world, but then once we kind of go along with Ash, there's not a lot that happens in the way of battle. They set up things, so if you're familiar with the games, like they set up something with Gary, but it doesn't really play out yet. They set up something with Misty later in the episode, but that doesn't play out yet. The only actual battles kind of take place between Ash, his own Pokemon, and then other Pokemon that are out in the wild. So we really don't get a good sense of like how a tournament would work, or even the kind of the different types, how they play against each other. We get a hint, but we don't get a real good explanation of that. So we don't see a lot of battles. Nothing's super explained. So I had to rank this one pretty low. But
admittedly though, that's the fact is the audience is actually being brought along with Ash and his ignorance.
That's true.
Because we see later, Ash knows jack shit about actually Pokemon battles.
Which is weird, and I want to talk about that in the
So
plot, because he's like
upsetting.
super fan though. So it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to why he's so pretty terrible at the beginning. But we'll get into that in a second. Angie, what did you score this one out of 5?
I gave it a 4.
Oh, nice. Okay.
I like it's repetitive, but I appreciate the dynamic, and again that the different classes and different types. That I think that's fantastic.
Fair enough. Sean?
I gave it a 3.
We're going to keep marching down the line there. Yeah, so what was your rationale?
Yeah. I was a little disappointed that we really didn't get further into it.
Yeah.
Because we've mentioned this before, when you take so long to get into the universe and the world that you live in, I lose a little bit of interest on the outset. And so to kind of build in some of those mechanics later, it seems like it's maybe an afterthought or something as a result of lazy writing.
Yeah, and I don't know if it was so much lazy writing in this one as just like, it's our first episode, so we're going to introduce our character and his little buddy, because it's essentially just like a boy and his dog story. But I was disappointed that
sassy bitchy dog.
That's right, that electrocutes you. I was disappointed though that we didn't get to like a decent battle, even like a training thing or something. They had hints of it, but for me it was a 2. So I actually gave it a 2 out of 5.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Though this goes more into plot, but holy shit, Pikachu taking down those Spearows at the end, though.
Yeah, and I thought that was awesome. And that's really the only reason it had like a 2, because there was something there. It wasn't just completely devoid. But we've seen in other first episodes that they actually give us quite a bit of action and quite a bit of explanation, which is good and bad. But the way that they handled it in Pokemon was kind of disappointing. So let's talk about how they handled it in Beyblade, because you actually get like 2.5 battles in this first episode.
Right.
But Angie, how do you think they handled it?
They tried to make marbles cool.
And dreidels.
Marble dreidel cool. I mean, okay, like some of the physics is interesting, but it's fucking dreidels. It's fucking marbles. Like, I feel the same way about this show as I feel about watching most types of sports ball, of like, great, you guys play, you do you. That's awesome. Why is this being inflicted on me? Why do I have to suffer?
I would love to see
well?
like Monday Night Beyblade, though. I would love to see that become a thing.
Like right after Raw.
Monday Night Beyblade.
Just a bunch of kids shooting dreidels at each other.
No, it's actually WWE performers. Just Beyblading each other.
You go down to DuPont Circle on any given night, you can probably see a bunch of kids like beat each other up for the exact same effect, for fuck's sake.
And John Cena's hanging out with them, still just like
John Cena, and he has his
let it rip.
But he doesn't even have a battle mechanic. You know nothing about the monsters. It's like if John Cena went out there and like got a single card, like the Joker from a deck, and just went push and like plug it in your eyes. It's the same effect.
I feel like John Cena would just wipe these kids out.
I would know the same about this world.
And steal their sack of blades.
A deck of cards in my eyes.
So
same game mechanic.
Sean, how about you? Does this feel like John Cena threw a deck of cards in your eyes?
No.
I
mean, that's a hard question to ask me, because it's a yes and a no.
Okay.
I felt like there was a lot of things. So I will say this. I enjoyed the fact that when they would do the transitions for the battles, they took it very seriously.
Yes.
These dreidel games, these battle dreidels had stakes to them, and they continually had to analyze with the computer Dizzy, whether the weight was off, or they needed more speed, or they needed 4 times the speed, to be able to do this. I got to the point where I was waiting for like somebody to do one of those like space dives. Like I was waiting for like the final episode, like Phoenix Baumgartner does like a space dive from like low orbit and
like
then just
dick.
rips a Beyblade at the end. And they're like, it's 1,000 times faster and it's on fire.
Its power is over 9,000. Like,
So I love the fact that, for something as simple as this, they took themselves very seriously. I can appreciate that.
Yeah, so for me, actually, the battle mechanics, they actually had like a 2.5. They had about 2.5 battles in this one, so I got to see them enough times that I really got kind of like the feel of how the dreidels are supposed to smash into each other and knock each other out of the little plastic stadium thing that they had in front of them. So
right.
I love that we've had a complete departure from calling them Beyblades and just calling them battle dreidels.
They're battle dreidels. It's 100% what they are. They're battle dreidels.
Can you imagine a Jewish version of this show?
It's the exact same show. I don't know what you're talking about. It's just you get just like gold coins.
The names would change.
You get those chocolate.
That'd be the one difference. There would be no Carlos in like Jewish.
You just instead of stealing blades from each other, you just get those gold covered chocolate coins that you get. That I kind of want one right now. It's gonna go spin a dreidel. Hope I get a coin. But no, I mean, this one, I gave it, well, we'll talk about scores in a second, but I gave it a little more credit than Pokemon because we got to see multiple battles. We got to see the basics of how they work. But then one factor that I thought was really cool was the strategy and the customizability of these blades. So it wasn't just like Pokeballs that they threw out that had a creature in it. They actually had some customizability to these battle dreidels. And I thought that was kind of a cool aspect of it. So that was something that was a little surprising and not completely stupid. So I was like, okay, I'll give that to you. That's fine. Angie, how'd you score Battle Dreidel
Well,
mechanics?
despite the fact that it is, I gave it. I'm tempted to bump it down. I gave it a 2.
Okay.
And I still would like to know when the fuck the pocket monster aspect of this shows up.
I mean, we can talk about that in the plot because it was like hinted at,
and I'm sure we
It's
shall.
just- so we'll get
but
into
I'm
it in a
just
second,
saying.
yeah, it didn't make much sense.
No fucking monsters in this fucking battle.
Agreed.
So I gave it a 2. I would give it a 1.5 if I could.
Fair. Sean, how about you, buddy?
I gave it a 3.
For no reason.
I gave it a 3 because it was very average. I enjoyed the fact that we got to see the number of battles that we did, and that was appreciative, but there was nothing that really stuck out about those battles for me.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. I wasn't quite as angry at it as Angie was, but so I kind of found it just average. I mean, like I said, we got a decent amount of battles. They had an interesting mechanic. It wasn't the best thing, but it was unique. And then they had an additional little wrinkle to it with the strategy. And then they even teased one at the end that was kind of like a cliffhanger thing, so that doesn't really count. But I give it a 3. It was middle of the road. There was enough interesting to set off the bad side of the stuff, being battle dreidels. So
Yeah.
Nerds everywhere just took to their keyboards in outrage that you ranked Pokemon lower than Beyblade.
I know, it's crazy. It's like they knew there was like a disturbance in the Pocket Monster force.
As if a million Pokemon suddenly cried out in terror.
Because somebody threw something at their
battle
head.
dreidel.
Pikachu!
Pikachu.
All right, so now we're gonna open this up a little bit more. We're not gonna do quite so much round robin. We'll just take about 5-10 minutes here and talk plot. So let's do 5 minutes. We're gonna bank it for Pokemon. So, Angie, what was kind of just your general reaction to the plot of Pokemon? And this is kind of more of just like a free flowing discussion, so we can jump in and out here.
Okay, so this references back to what I sort of said at the beginning of like, I remember it being like, whatever, Pokemon. And I think, we're focused on the first episode, and
right.
I feel like later seasons that I know of, it falls into the Dragon Ball Z conundrum of like, you keep getting, this epic thing that we have to capture / defeat, blah, 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 which falls in on itself after a certain point in time. It's like a souffle.
You just can't sustain it, yeah.
Exactly. But for this first episode, I was actually surprised, number 1, by the epic quality of it. Number 2, by how integrated the whole system was to the entire world.
Oh, yeah.
Like, Pokemon was the basis of this world. It was not like, this is some game that some people play. Like, no, these were everywhere.
Yeah, it's their ecology. Like, it's their
Yeah.
it's their ecosystem. It's everything around them,
Yeah.
which is awesome. I mean, even to the point where there's like a rooster thing. I think it was a Dodrio that was actually
It was a
on
Dodrio.
Yeah, I knew.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's just like the rooster for you, like crowing the sunrise. It's pretty great.
Right? Yeah. And the other thing is, okay, I was maybe 2 glasses of wine in, but when we got to the point where Pikachu was like in pain,
Yeah.
and Ash was like, no, Spiros, take me! And like Pikachu's like marshalling to him like, and I run and I electrify the shit out of you because I love you, Ash! Like, I got tears. I got genuine tears last night rewatching this.
No, it was great.
I had a lot of feel.
They had great emotional moments. Like I said, it's this classic boy and his dog story. But at the beginning, like the boy and the dog don't really like each other.
They don't like each other.
No.
And the dog is, as aforementioned, a sassy little bitch who will electrocute
He will
you.
electrocute you
So
with the drop of a hat, whether you're wearing rubber gloves or not.
I want to ask the question because we brought up this boy and dog journey several times. Is this a world where people are just cool? Is this a world where people are simply cool with dog fighting then?
That's
Because-
always been
Yes,
my problem
that's-
with Pocket Monster stuff in general. It's always bothered me that it's basically just like, I'm going to impose my will on this other sentient creature, imprison it, and then make it fight every day. I do like the fact that Pokemon, at least, Pikachu was not about that. Like, he's like, no, I'm not going in the stupid Pokeball. I have a lot of will, and you're going to have a real tough time dominating it. We're going to have to be friends if this is going to work. So,
Yeah,
arguably, if Pokemon is horrifying because it's dog fighting, like essentially of your friends, and the rest of the Pocket Monster series are just as terrifying because literally the only reason why you have these creatures is so you can battle them.
Yeah.
Like,
right.
That's terrifying.
It was interesting just because of like Ash's language that he uses
Okay.
at some point. You mentioned Angie about the Spearow battle that he has at the end, where he says, "I'm going to capture and defeat you all." And that just sort of seemed, it's very hard because you have this difference where he's treating Pikachu almost like an equal, but at the same time, things that are Pokemon, he's like, I'm going to capture you and put you in a ball and then put you on my belt.
Admittedly, the sparrows were about 2 seconds away from rending his flesh from his bones.
That's fair. It seemed like the phrase, like the catchphrase, "Gotta catch 'em all," could just be extended to "Gotta catch 'em all," but I don't have to take care of them all.
So what you're saying is Pokemon is slavery.
Yeah, like a little bit. There was parts of it that I was a little bit kind of freaked out about. I tried to view this in as warped of a way as possible that I could. I was also really concerned, and I know that, Dave, you mentioned, and you made a great point about this being their ecology,
right?
But come on, parents. Parents of the town of Pallet, get your shit together. This is a 10-year-old that you're allowing to go off into the world. He knows nothing about Pokemon.
Even though he's
has
a super
no
fan,
concept.
apparently.
He will learn.
He's a super fan who knows not a goddamn thing about what's going on.
Which is what I deal with most days at work. So, yeah.
Yeah, I feel like we can't disclaim the value of going in and being like, the fuck am I doing?
Yeah.
I don't know.
But I mean, he's sitting there the entire time. You would think that somebody who is so compassionate about what he's doing, that he would have some indication of what was actually going on, to the point where he asks Pikachu, "Can you say anything other than your name?" That's what all Pokemon do. What have you been doing? What maze search have you been into? Maybe fucking dum-dum.
Maybe he thought it would be special because it was like his Pokemon.
He's
Maybe
like, this
he thought
wasn't
he
in
could
the
understand.
game.
He wanted to understand.
He's like, Pikachu wasn't in the game. I totally played the same game, and I couldn't pick a Pikachu to begin with. I could only pick a plant, fire, or water monster, and then all of a sudden you get this electric mouse creature, which is great. But no, on that point, like, how fucking awesome would it be if this was real? Like, this is the one thing that even as like a 17-year-old, I was just like, I want this thing to be real. Like, I want to just go out into the field and just like bonk a pigeon on the head, put it in a Pokeball, and then be able to train it. Are you kidding me?
And now they are my legion.
And now they're my weird legion of like diseased birds that fly.
Oh my god!
But like, maybe it's just me being crazy. But like,
fly,
my pigeons.
Yeah. Spread your disease.
Wouldn't that be great though if you just had like disease armies?
Yeah, I'd be sitting on the other end of the field and I'd be like, oh my god, it's Pestilence Dave again.
Would you guys love to do it though? Four horsemen aside, wouldn't this be an awesome thing to do?
Also,
yeah,
just
it would
the
be. It
greatness
would
of, like,
be.
Yeah, anytime you just make an animal appear, like, oh shit, I need to get downtown in 2 minutes, but I don't really feel like driving. Ponyta, go! And like, there's your ride.
Let me just ride my Onyx downtown.
Oh god.
I would love for someone to do research on like what actually happens to them within their Pokeball, because is it like a Tamagotchi where if you leave it alone for too long it'll just desiccate and die, or is it just like in some sort of like hibernation state? I don't know, but
I would like to think that there's like some kind of like subspace pocket in there that they're like in a lovely field somewhere.
Or they're all just hanging out together. Yeah, maybe they're all together.
Yeah, and there's like lots of food.
Like a
and,
Pokemon hammer space.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, just like a nice like alternate universe where they all
I like
just kind of
that.
go hang out. Well, because one of the other interesting things they mentioned in the first episode is that wild Pokemon are jealous of human trained
Yeah,
Pokemon.
I didn't like that. I don't know if
Yes,
that was like a weird Lost in
That
Translation.
was a weird-
It's kind of creepy. I'll give that.
I didn't like it.
It's kind of creepy, unless it is like all these Pokemon get access to this super awesome
True.
like alternate universe where they get food all the time.
Yeah, but then
I'm just saying.
but if you were like a wild
is my new
Pokemon,
theory.
wouldn't you just be like, yo, I'll totally just get bonked on the head and go in your Pokeball? Like, I'm not even gonna fight you, bro. Like, just put me in that ball. I'm good to go.
No, there's pride. No. Pride is at stake here.
Wild pride.
Pride is at stake.
I just took it as more like
You don't want to be owned by any old schmuck. You want
That's
him
true.
to earn
Some
it.
doofus with fingerless gloves and a weird forehead hair. But no, like, I get it if it's like sort of the taming of like a wild stallion kind of thing, even if it's just a Pidgey or a Spearow or whatever, a Rattata. I get that the wild animals kind of had that wild side, and I really love the fact that Pikachu was very reluctant to be Ash's partner, and he was resistant to it, but he was still hanging out with him. And then to Angie's point, he does kind of save the day because they stand up for each other and they develop this friendship at the end of the episode. It was great. It was definitely emotional. It made you invested. You wanted to watch more episodes. But unfortunately, we got to move on.
And
so a few closing
quick,
comments
also-
and your scores. Yeah, what do you got?
Also, randomly at the end of the episode, you get like epic plot point flying through with that one fucking bird that the Pokedex is like, some Pokemon we don't know shit about.
The Pokedex
And it's
just
like,
shrugged. Ooh.
Like, that is why I give it. So I give this a 5
Oh,
because
nice.
number one, I loved. I thought that the plotline between Ash and Pikachu was wonderful, and the fact that you got into the universe fast. And also, you were given a hint of how expansive this could go
True.
by the end. I thought it laid it all out for you, but also left you wanting more.
Yeah, that's great.
So 5 out of 5.
Sean, how about you?
I changed my score. You kind of won me over on this a little bit, Angie and Dave. So I moved from a 3. I went up to a 4.
Yes.
Very nice. I also gave this one a 4. The only knock on it was that they didn't have more of the battle thing. There was much less training and much more Ash being a dumb, just an idiot, and then Pikachu just being awesome. I love when Ash was just like getting his ass handed to him, and Pikachu's just cackling up on that tree. I love that.
Right.
So it was very fun to see those two interaction. But yeah, I only knocked at 1 point just because we didn't get to see an actual battle. But yeah, that's about it. So let's move on to the plot. I guess you can call it that, of Beyblade, and let's talk about this here show. Angie, what was your first kind of general response reaction to this show?
It's plain dreidels.
Okay, fair enough. Moving on, Sean. No, so yeah, that's it though, right? Like they don't really do anything else.
No, yeah, that's like in 10 seconds in the beginning, you get this whole thing where it's like, oh, the beasts of old,
Yeah.
and these dreidels, and the beast shall rise again, and then
I'm like,
it's
yeah, cool,
gone
I'm here
for
for
the
that.
rest of the episode.
Yeah, nothing. We got nothing.
Gone. Yeah. Jack shit. I mean, I feel like if this was a show about discovering the beasts within the dreidels,
Awesome.
or like actually, this is something like, we didn't know this was a thing.
Right.
Sure, fine, I'm down. If there was more of a hint of that, great. But yeah, you hint at this epic plot line, and then you like jackknife into this dumbass fingerless glove wearing doofus, with his random awesome friend with his like pervert computer, and like they're, it's like, okay, what show am I watching here? What's happening?
In the computer's defense, most computers are perverts by virtue of what we're looking at.
That's fair. That is fair. See Dave's attempted takeover by Windows 10.
Yes.
earlier
we
tonight.
are keeping Skynet at bay as we speak because they're trying to take over the podcast. But no, I mean, we've watched episodes before where like magic cards mysteriously rain down from the sky, and they happen to like hold the spirits of supernatural beasts inside of them, and it makes zero fucking sense, but at least they get to it, and they're like, here's a thing that's happening, it's crazy,
Right.
Let's fight. In this show, they're like, here's a crazy cool thing that you're never gonna see. It's like, well, what the okay, I guess I'm done then, because it's not gonna happen.
Right.
So
And Dave, the thing that really was frustrating to me was that they had every opportunity when they showed the dragon floating in the clouds at night. You think to yourself, oh crap, like this might be an opportunity where this dragon possesses this Beyblade, and and really he reaches his full potential, for this upcoming battle.
Yeah.
And then it does a great idea of injecting the sense of mysticism into this show, and I appreciated that, but again, it never came to fruition.
Mm-mm.
They had every opportunity with the gleam on the piece of the sword.
Right.
That's sort of illuminated that only Dyson could see.
we'll talk about that briefly, because that'll let you talk about the grandfather too, because just to give people some context about what's going on, because there's clearly some sort of mythology tied in with this kid, the family, the great dragoon, and then the Beyblades, but it's never tied together, right?
Great Dragoon.
So you get a lot of these separate plot points, and you're left wondering at the very end of this episode, how do they all tie together?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And where are they going to go with it?
And I will say, I watched the second episode just
you?
because I was like, wow, some resolution would be nice here. And they do not resolve a bunch of those plot points still.
Sons of bitches.
I give you 2 episodes to like resolve your plot points for me that you introduce, and then we're done.
I think I'm gonna knock
Sons
it a
of
point
bitches.
just because of that. Sons of bitches. I gave him the benefit of the doubt.
Sons of whores. Yeah. No, it's what I honestly felt was there are too many things happening here. Hello, I am your audience. You want to bring me up to speed on what the fuck is going on?
Right. Tell me about the Great Dragoon.
Yeah. Why do I care about kids playing dreidels?
Ultimately, I think that we can agree that Dyson walks around town and battles other dreidel gangs and gets their dreidels and builds new dreidels. That's the entire plot of this.
Maybe.
Well,
Maybe
and,
that's
Car-
the
and
entire
Carlos
plot.
does that too. Carlos
Possibly.
steals everybody's dreidels and then breaks them down to
Yeah,
make
but
the best fucking dreidel.
Yeah, he's a dick about it, though, apparently, somehow,
heaviest
which is
dreidel.
in a different way. The heaviest dreidel.
Yeah, we'll talk about this in the boss fight. I can't wait to, because it's like heavy dreidel versus fast dreidel, and it's just ridiculous.
Your physics is not great.
No, it's really not.
exactly.
It's really so sad. The lack of
The
understanding.
science is very
Your
questionable.
science is so weak. Your science game is weak. Your dreidel game is strong, but your science game is weak.
Dreidel, 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 I made you out of raw energy.
Raw energy from a blood dragon. Like, that's awesome. I will watch that show. Battle dreidels with the energy of blood dragons, I'm going to watch. Tell me that it's going to happen, but never let it happen. I'm not going to watch anymore.
Yeah,
Hanukkah
right?
just got a lot more badass.
They were basically like, it came down to like,
Who did we invite to Yom Kippur? It's a great dragoon.
oh, see you later, Great Dragoon. I order that as an appetizer at Chinese restaurants. I don't know if I'm the only one.
Leave a seat for Elijah, and then also leave a seat for Dragoon. What's your problem?
That's how it works. It's in the books.
Oy
I love, though,
Jesus,
that it
all right.
eventually it comes down to a point where he's like, oh, I've got this one blade / dreidel. I can either put the power of the legendary Dragoon in it, or I can just like make the winding strip twice as long and it'll be super fast.
Right.
And then run up
And
to
then
it like
leap
a,
up into the
like a
air while I'm
freak.
doing it.
Oh my
It
god.
looks super cool.
Nope, let's forego dragon power. In what cartoon does a protagonist ever say like, I got this phenomenal dragon power, could use it, not gonna use it?
You know what we're going to use instead? Physics.
And plastic.
Poorly thought
Plastic
out
teeth.
physics.
Poorly done.
Poorly done physics. Oh, Christ. And then the grandfather knocked this down another point. I think I'm going to knock this down another point even further because the grandfather just irritated me. It was very much like the Americanized Japanese grandfather. So what was clearly probably like a pervy grandfather who was a source of like a mentor in the Japanese version. He turned
I
into
wanted
like the
an entire
weirdest
show about the
street-
grandfather.
He at one point just says to himself about his grandson, he's like, I gotta admit, he's as fly as I am. And he delivered it just like that, like I would.
Oh, no.
Oh.
No.
He says like, hey dog, a number of times, like what?
Totes my goats, man.
No.
Straight from the
I
fridge.
dropped this.
Like,
I dropped this another one.
we're done.
It's so
Fair.
bad. Angie, what'd you score this one?
I gave it. I'm tempted to knock it further, but I gave it a 2.
Okay, that's fair. I think it's fair.
Yeah, it's. I again, Kenny is the show saving grace. He's literally
love
the only
Kenny,
thing I care
okay.
about. I love Kenny.
Okay. Sean, how about you?
All right.
For the fact that there's a pervert computer, I give this a 3.
You give us a 3
Fair.
for a pervert computer.
Fair.
Okay.
Yeah, the
interesting.
pervert computer carried this entire
Kenny
show.
and Kenny and the pervert computer. If that was the name of the show,
That or-
I would watch
or
it.
the grandfather. Or just battling dreidels. Oh dear. All right, so I knocked that one down to a 2. Now we're going to get into the boss battles. Now this is always fun, and Angie, I don't know if you're familiar with how this has gone in the past couple episodes, but occasionally, both the hosts, co-hosts, and guests on the show have a different opinion on
Of what the boss
what
is.
the boss is. So who do you think was the boss in Pokemon?
This is where the show suffered
Okay.
for me.
Yeah.
Because the boss that we are introduced in the first episode is not the iconic boss that if it hadn't been in the first episode, I would have been like, all the points to you,
Right.
because Team Rocket is iconic and
And
fantastic.
they're nowhere to be found.
There is actually on my Instagram right now, there is video of me and my boyfriend like doing the whole speech that they do.
Did you have a
It's
Meowth with
amazing.
you?
We did, my cat,
Oh,
but
that's
he's not on the
fantastic.
video. We cut out too late.
Okay.
But it's but the problem is that that's not who we get.
No.
We get instead the egg white of villains, Gary.
Okay, so you got Gary as your boss.
Oh
The
God.
egg white of villains.
He's a white. Tell me I'm wrong.
No, he's the
He's like Draco Malfoy, except somehow more pretentious and less interesting.
Yeah.
It's just, oh
True.
God, he's every schoolyard whiny bully. It's like I could see every interaction they would have. Like the moment we were introduced, I saw every interaction they would ever have, and I was like, no, thank you.
All right, so Sean, Angie says Gary is the boss of this episode. Who do you have as the boss?
So originally I wrote Spiros,
Okay.
the bird Pokemon that we saw. But really, I think the boss of this episode was Cliffs, Hills, and Common Sense.
So landscape and common sense. Okay.
Yeah, landscape and lack of
nature.
common sense. So
Also being 10.
yeah, it was just Ash really seems to navigate all of these poorly, and it was bizarre how they kind of de-escalated. You know, he goes from jumping off of a bluff of a waterfall into the water, to getting to falling off of his bicycle because of a small hill.
Yes.
that he
This is true.
goes
Yet he
over.
managed to
And then-
avoid like the dragon in the water.
Right?
And then has zero common sense.
Gyarados, yeah.
When he
Gyarados.
sort of presents himself as sacrifice to the Spearows, they're gonna kill him.
Yeah.
They're gonna kill
Straight
him unless something happens. It just, I feel like Ash's greatest threat were the elements and just his lack of common sense throughout the entire
He's
episode.
his own worst enemy, is what you're trying to say.
Admittedly, that nearly kills his Pokemon.
It's not off to a good start.
There were so many times that I noted in this episode that there are still shots of Ash or Pikachu laying motionless, and my immediate thought was, oh God, did they just kill one of them?
Oh, they're dead.
This show took a dark tone.
Yeah, it's like that first episode actually is pretty dark.
They get roughed up
it's
real
just like,
fast. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, and then in my notes too,
fucked
I've got,
up.
and my notes for this section always do this. It's almost like I write it down because it's the first person we come up to, and they're like, oh, okay, Gary's here. He's the boss. Nope, Gary's gone. We never see Gary again. Cross him out. The next thing that comes up is like,
he's in the credits, and we never see him
he's in the
again.
credits. And then like a Pidgey comes up. I'm like, okay, maybe they're gonna battle a Pidgey, and maybe this. Nope, not the boss. Just Pidgey beats the shit out of Ash and then flies away. Is it Rattata because he stole a bunch of shit from Ash's backpack, making him basically an idiot? No, it's not him. Is it one Spearow? No, it's not one Spearow. So I've got these all like crossed out. So my boss of this particular episode was the entire flock of Spearows. Because honestly, it was the only real like antagonist that they had any sort of like interaction with. So it's not a great boss, but it's the boss that we have for this episode, as far as I'm concerned.
I think you're right too, because it's the only threat that raises
other than
stakes
Earth
in
and
any
rocks.
way, shape, or form.
Yeah, genuinely. Yeah.
And just his 10-year-old brain.
Yeah. But, for a 10-year-old, that's not a bad adversary. Bunch of angry birds.
Yeah,
hey, Alfred Hitchcock thought it was fairly effective.
It's true.
Alfred Hitchcock thought it
She
could
was
be
a
a good
grown
enemy.
lady. I mean, much better than if you're a 10-year-old and you have like, and you're allowed to just wander around and you trip over rocks and almost get swallowed by dragons. Like, it's kind of on you, bud. It's kind of on you. Angie, how'd you score this one?
I gave it a 3.
Gave it a 3?
I gave it a 3 just because of the potential of something more than Gary.
I think that's fair. More than Gary. Sean, how about you, buddy?
I gave this a 2. I didn't really feel like there was any big kind of threat.
To be fair, your boss was the landscape, so I think that a 2 is fair.
Yeah, I felt for my assertions.
As someone who had a really awkward growth period, I'll have you know the landscape can be a deadly enemy.
Oh, it's brutal and unyielding. I gave this one a 2 for my flock of Spearows. I gave this one a 2. Because, I mean, yes, it was a threat, so it did exist, and it did kind of escalate things a little bit over just like a Pidgey or Gary who decided not to fight. So, yeah, I gave it a 2. It was a little bit of a letdown, though. It was more about the bond between Pikachu and Ash. So, I mean, I get that, and they as far as the plot goes, they did a good job of using those Spearows to get that final, like, partnership across. So that's why I gave it a 2. Got an extra point for that, so. Cool. Now again to another list of crossed off names. Let's talk about Beyblade. Because like I said, there's two and a half battles that come up. So you've got 3 to 4 potential bosses in this one. So Angie, which one did you pick? Who's your boss of the episode?
My literal notes are boss. Okay, it's Billy.
Right?
No, wait.
Nope.
It's Andrew.
Yeah.
No, wait. It's Carlos.
Is it though?
No, wait. It's Kai.
Is it though?
I don't even know, because frankly, in my mind, Kai has frenemy written all over him.
Yeah, he's got a sweet getup too.
Yeah, check out that hair. Check out that hair. He has hair matching the protagonist. Yep. You know they're going to be best buds later on.
He's like the opposite design of him.
Yeah.
Yeah,
there was I got no epic villain here whatsoever. I mean, Carlos got his ass handed to him on a plate halfway through the episode. You know, like it's they kept trying to build it up. It's like, oh, the next opponent, and I'm like, and once again, you're just playing with dreidels, so I don't really give that many fucks.
True.
Sorry. So yeah,
Carlos the dreidel thief. Yeah, Sean, what do you got for this?
Carlos, yeah, right.
I kind of liked Carlos.
Okay, I don't think you're supposed to, but okay.
Because I like him as a boss.
Right.
I like him as a boss because he shows up. He's formidable when Dyson finally shows up and and is late to his battle. He's just like, hey guys, I'm here, and it looks like Carlos has cleared out everybody.
Right.
Like he's
got a Santa sack full of dreidels.
Yeah, and I love the idea of just this menacing duffel bag full of battle dreidels, these bladles, and he's just holding them over his shoulder.
That's the next best show.
That's the next best show. Yeah. So he's holding all these things over his shoulder, and he's like, whatever, I'll take it. anytime, anywhere. And you're just like, oh, okay, like this guy's cocky.
Yeah.
Like this guy has a reason to be cocky. And I love that kind of confidence in a boss. And then when he ends up losing and he bitches out and begins to run away, you're introduced to, and we've had this with Yu-Gi-Oh,
right.
where we have a villain, and then we have a bigger villain that's sort of introduced to us. And I thought the idea of having Kai show up was kind of cool, because this guy is dressed like Sephiroth from Final Fantasy VII,
just like shrunk down,
hair to match.
like a chibi Sephiroth. Yeah.
But he's like 10 years old.
Yeah.
The guy's ready to fuck everybody up. So I like that. I liked it.
No, I'm with you on that one, because I do like Carlos's attitude. I like that he walks in basically with this aura of just like he's been dominating the entire town, stealing dreidels left and right. Doesn't give a shit.
And
ahead.
but
Stealing dreidels, does that make Carlos, honestly, in this extended metaphor that we draw, does it make him a weird kind of dreidel Nazi? Is that kind
That's
of
100% what that was his Japanese translation name was actually dreidel Nazi.
But
They
we
changed
have
it to
this
Carlos.
moment when we have this moment where Carlos is introduced to Kai. Kai is shaking in his boots, and what does Kai do to Carlos? Bitch slaps him and knocks
Literally.
all of his bladels all over the place.
So I love
that's
this.
a sad scene.
I love this moment because the whole episode, Carlos was built up like nobody else wanted to go against him. Nobody else even wanted to like work together except for Dyson Tyson Bissell Mop. But he was the only one that wanted to like take this guy on. So obviously he's your hero of the show. What I really liked was that Carlos not only lost, he then tried to sneak away. So it was like all that was just false bravado. He tried to sneak away with his bladels, his sack of bladels, and then he got caught by somebody who clearly knew him from like a former life or maybe from another team or something. So you got the sense that there was a history and that Carlos was just kind of like a fake. He was a big shot at one point, but he was like a small fish in that particular pond. So he came to this place and tried to be the big fish, tried to be the big bully. And he got his ass knocked out, and then Kai comes in. So I actually really like the role that Carlos played in here. It's really tough with a villain in a first episode, because unless they're like a Kaiba who's going to stick around, they're usually just like a one and done. But yeah, I had the same thing.
Yeah.
I had Billy, I had Andrew, I had Carlos, and I had Kai. So I went with Carlos. Angie, how did you score Carlos as a boss in this particular episode?
Oh, Carlos,
Or
I would
whoever you
give
thought was the boss.
I will give the bosses in general a 2, just because the show needed to make up its mind as to what was actually going to be the
Fair
villain
enough.
roughly about 10 minutes before it did.
Sure.
But I give it a point because Kai had a lot of potential,
Okay.
and he was actually, aside from Kenny, he was the only other reason I was like, this might be a good show eventually.
And then he got
I'm here for
bitch
Kai.
slapped.
So.
Yeah.
Any 10-year-old kid that's smacking the fuck out of other 10-year-old kids, I'm here
That was
for.
pretty cool. Good job, Kai. Sean, how about you? The Bladel boss.
I enjoyed the fact that they introduced the idea of a bigger bad, a future threat that is on the horizon, and this whole concept that they have Beyblade gangs,
Right.
which seems
The Blade
bananas.
Sharks.
Right. So for that alone, I gave it a 3.
You gave it a 3 for that one. Okay, I think that's fair. Yeah, I like that. I don't know if you guys call it this, or maybe we watch a different episode recording online. But didn't Kai call it the Blade Sharks, and then Kenny call it the Bay Sharks?
Something.
That's what I heard. I had to watch it and just be
Plot
like, did I hear wrong?
inconsistencies.
Plot holes.
Dock another
Dock 'em. Yeah,
point.
exactly. So no, I gave it a 3 because I thought there was enough personality to be interesting, and also I love that how he kind of turned tail at the end. Thought that was an interesting twist on his character. So better than a flock of Spearows. Got to give it a 3. Yeah. So that's gonna do it for Pokemon versus Beyblade. I'll give you guys a second to kind of tally up your scores here. If you have them ready, we'll go over them. But for me personally, I have an 18 for Pokemon. I have an 18 for Pokemon.
I had an identical score
You had
for Pokemon.
18 for Pokemon as well, Sean. Angie, what did you have today?
I had a 22.
That's excellent.
25.
Wow.
I ranked it very highly.
That's excellent.
It hit my nostalgia button pretty hard.
That's fantastic.
Nice.
That's actually currently the highest average of the shows that we've watched. 18, 18, and 22.
Woo! You're welcome, Pokemon. This one's for you.
Nicely done. That'll make Mel happy too. And it's actually right in line with IMDb's ranking. So we have an average for Pokemon of adjusted 77.3. IMDb's adjusted as a 74. So super close. Now let's talk Beyblade. I had a 12 for this one. Sean?
I had a 15.
Sean always skews a
I had a
little higher
13.
than me.
Yeah.
What did you have,
yeah.
Angie?
Sean, you're way too nice. I had a 13.
You had a 13. So that's
I would knock it lower if I could.
that's actually currently the lowest of all of them. We've had a few failing grades, but that's the lowest. The average of this one,
Yeah.
like I said, on IMDb is a 67, and we have a 53. So, ooh.
We will much harsher. I would just, on a final note of
Yeah.
this, the fact that Beyblade, honestly, the more and more I hear it, it sounds like something that like your significant other would like draw on you
Yeah.
or something.
That's how
it's
most
getting
relationships
dark in my
end
mind. The
these
more and
days.
more I hear it, it's like digging into my brain. Like Beyblade. Oh no, my husband has a knife.
Yeah.
Like that's what it's starting to sound like to me. That's the
Oh,
effect the
no.
show has had on me.
No, in the year in 2015, 72% of all relationships ended at the point of a Beyblade. It's a statistical fact from criminal statistics. It's unfortunate this plague.
Beyblade,
The battle
I'd like to
dreidels
see-
and blades.
I'd like to see the raw data for that.
Yeah, we'll get it. We'll
if
post it
I
up on
could.
SaturdayMorningCartoons.com.
Great, awesome.
This has been a great discussion, and I'm glad that the numbers kind of worked out the way they did, and Sean has been exposed as a super optimistic cartoon fan that he is.
I like to be positive.
It's only so far optimism can take
Yeah,
you.
no, we have to have Sean on the show to balance me out because I hate most of the stupid stuff. So
Magical dreidels.
exactly. Oh man,
The
that really
best.
paints it in a whole different light. But Angie, thank you so
Yeah.
much for coming back to the show. We're so lucky
Yes.
that you had
Thank you.
time for us tonight. Now is the time of the show where we actually get to let you talk about what's coming up in your life if you'd like to share out there with the viewers listening at home.
Oh, good God. Well, first and foremost, I am directing, for anyone that's in the Stanton area of Virginia, out by Charlottesville, I am directing a stage reading of The Tragedy of Messalina, Empress of Rome for the American Shakespeare Center on March 20th. So if you really feel like getting your restoration drama on, please feel free to join us. On the plus side, the plot is essentially something out of like a 70s porno, so
Ooh.
it's pretty fun. Aside from that, I'm doing the New Drafts series with my company New Sass Productions. This is headed by the amazing Claire Schaefer and Aubrey O'Connor, and we are essentially doing one-act plays in bars. So it's a combination like pub crawl new play festival,
awesome.
and that's going on in April.
This is exciting.
Yeah, it's you drink and get your theater on. And then finally, I am appearing in a production of Theater Prometheus's all-female Macbeth, which is opening in mid-April. So you can come catch me there at the Anacostia Arts Center. So yeah, that's what I'm about right now.
Very cool.
Yeah.
And where can the folks out there find you on social media if you are so inclined?
You can find my webpage at angelakperko.weebly.com, or you can follow me on Instagram at La Shield Maiden, or on Twitter as well as La Shield Maiden. For reasons of Vulcan nerddom, I refuse to let that name go.
Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. Or you can find me on Facebook, or find New Sass Productions on Facebook, or find us at newsass.com.
Awesome. We will have all that information up on our website, so you guys don't have to worry about writing that down. We will have it all for you at SaturdayMorningCartoons.com. But Sean, buddy, what do you have going on?
Oh man, this will have been the first weekend of Washington Improv Theater's Fighting Improv Smackdown Tournament.
Fist.
It is their version of, it is shortened to Fist. So we have, this is the first, this will have concluded when this comes out, the first weekend of Fist. We are going to be headlining a bunch of shows for my improv group Knox. And that will be for the entirety of March, as well as also the first 2 weeks of April. You can find tickets witdc.org. And as always, you can find me on Instagram and Twitter at Sean Paul Ellis.
Fantastic. We will have that information up on our site as well. If you're interested in finding out more about me, you can check me out on Twitter at DrClawMD. You can also head over to Collider.com, where I do a lot of TV and movie news and recaps of, your favorite shows like Arrow, Walking Dead, similar things like that. You can also head over to DaveTrumbore.com. That's where I post some of my short fiction, if you are so inclined. And if you happen to be a fan of the science, because science, you can head over to Nerdist, where I am a recent addition as a freelance writer for their science category.
Dave.
Yeah.
Yes, science.
Guess what? So I got to use my science degree to write about the nightmare journey down a sea turtle's throat, which is actually fucking terrifying, so definitely go check that out. And I also got to do the definitive science of Super Mario Brothers just recently, and that was a lot of fun. It turns out that Mario is probably an alien humanoid plumber from a planet that has 8 times the gravity of Earth, yet he can jump about 25 feet in the air. So he's fucking awesome is what I'm trying to say. So definitely
It all
check that
makes
out.
sense now.
It made zero sense until I got into it, and now I'm this like weird alternate reality creator for a place where Super Mario actually exists.
Because I was really hoping that he wasn't an Earth Italian plumber with a concussion that turned his brain into pudding.
That would actually make more sense. That he's not Lou Albano in a prison basement.
Mario just hooked up to a bunch of tubes somewhere.
Oh, that's probably
Every
actually
once in a while,
that's
he
probably
goes, "It's a me."
That's probably actually what's going on. But if you're interested in finding out more about Saturday morning cartoons, you can do so at our website, SaturdayMorningCartoons.com. Remember, that's morning with a U. You can also find us on Twitter at MorningToons. Check out Sean's handiwork on our Tumblr page, SaturdayMorningCartoons.tumblr.com. We've got a Facebook page, which you guys have been just awesome about lately, about posting stuff and liking stuff and sharing with your friends. So thank you so much for doing that, and we hope that you continue to do so.
Yes, thank you.
You can also check us out on YouTube. We have an account there. If you have a moment, please feel free to check us out on iTunes and Stitcher, and feel free to leave a rating and review. It really does help the show. So we appreciate those of you who have done so, and we encourage those of you who have not to do so. You can listen to our podcast there each and every week through iTunes and Stitcher. And if you have a suggestion for a future episode, drop us an email, SaturdayMorningCartoons@gmail.com. We are continuing with Pocket Monster March Madness Month for 2 more weeks, and we've got 4 more shows that are coming up. So Sean, buddy, what do we have lined up next for the listeners out there?
Ooh, next week we have Monster Rancher versus Magi Nation, and we will have Evan Valentine joining us. And then to round out the end of the month, we have Digimon versus Zatch Bell with Tony Lazzaroni.
These are going to get increasingly more insane, I think, as we go, because we're just going to be so fried from all this stuff.
Fingers crossed.
Fingerless gloves crossed.
Yes, but we'll always have magical dreidels.
We will always have magical dreidels. Again, thank you very much for Angie to come back on the show tonight. We'd love to have you again. Appreciate it very much talking about
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
dreidel battles and Pokemon with us. And thank you guys out there in listener land for listening to us tonight. We hope to see you next time on Saturday Morning Cartoons. Thanks again.